Welcome to the Speak Her podcast with your host, Camille Essick, the podcast where innovators and creators connect. Let's get started.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your girl, Cam. Welcome to Heart and Soul 2021. Shout out to DJ Spade. Y'all give it up to DJ Spade there in the comments. He did his thing. Thank you so much to my sponsors, everyone that is here. Y'all, I'm excited and nervous all at the same time. We are about to have an amazing conversation with these gorgeous brothers. Ladies, take it in. All the smelling, let me do it. So, thank you, everyone, just for joining me tonight. First of all, I cannot do this without you. I really appreciate everyone. I definitely want to shout out my sponsors, Marc Coley Photography, TMCBA, the Marc Coley Business Academy, Jim Door Nature and Quick Copy Prints, JaiTee Ray Beauty, the Recondius Experience, Candies, Cocoa Bombs, Community Room Partners, JaiTee and Beauty. Thank you so much for everyone for being here tonight. We want to go ahead and kick off the conversation. I do want to introduce the panel on tonight. So, fellas, if you're not speaking, please mute your mic. That way, everyone doesn't have the feedback, and we can do it one at a time. I'm going to start with Dr. Wayne Woodsen. Wayne, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, I am Antwan Woodsen. I run a consulting firm that deals with Black nonprofits and higher ed institutions, and I have a foundation, and then I have my media company which does production and events. Glad to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Of course. Then we have next up Marc Coley of the Marc Coley Business Academy.
Hey, what's going on? It's Marc Coley here. I'm the founder of the Marc Coley Business Academy. We teach entrepreneurs personal development, spiritual development, and business development. It's an honor to be here the second time with Heart and Soul.
Thank you. And it's an honor to have you back, my brother. JaiTee, what's up, bro? How you doing?
What up? I'm doing phenomenal. How are you?
Good. How are you? It's great to see you.
Good to see you as well. DJ Spade wanted me to play spades, man. That was wonderful, man. That was good. So yes, I am JaiTee. I am the lead creative of Just Draw Creatives, which is a creative branding agency where we specialize in providing brand strategy and design to startups and small businesses. And I'm also the lead creative for the Church Collection, which is a creative agency that helps out churches be more creative, conscious, and connected to a world that we say that needs Jesus. Huh? Come on. So yes, I'm glad to be here tonight. Thank you, Camille.
Somebody just had to be churchy already. What's up? The gentleman is here. Derek D. Ross, what's going on?
What's up, family? I am so excited to be back, Camille. I love how you have amplified and elevated this event. So definitely excited to see the growth. My name is Derek D. Ross. I am a brand strategist, publicist, and your thought partner. I am a senior account supervisor with an agency here in Raleigh called Walk West, but I also do my own consulting, branding, and creative strategy for HBCU brands. That's my niche. That's my specialty. And I love what I do in amplifying those voices, those stories in order to create impact and engagement.
Yes. And then we have this guy. He's so articulate, so smart. We call him the party guy. Antwan, introduce yourself.
First off, thank you for having me, Camille. This is my first year, so I'm excited to be here. My name is Antwan. I'm a licensed psychotherapist. I also own and operate 2 Subway restaurants, and I am the founder of the Aiken Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit foundation.
Love it. And then we have, he is the man behind the lens. We have Michael Wiley in the building.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Camille, for inviting me to Heart and Soul this year. It's a privilege to be here. I'm Michael Wiley. I am a portrait photographer here in Atlanta, and I'm also a corporate trainer. for different restaurant brands, Krispy Kreme, now HOA brands, which is Hooter and Hoots Wings. So that's me.
Thank you. And this man can beat your face with his fingers. The one and only Rico, I call him Rico. Recondius is here.
Good evening, everybody. Camille, thank you so much for having me. Guys, hello, everybody. My name is Recondius O'Brien, and I am a hairstylist and makeup artist, but I'm also a trauma coach. And I am a consultant as well. So we have a lot to talk about.
Awesome. And the man with the plan, my brother all the way representing the West Coast, California. Brandon Harris is here. Brandon, introduce yourself.
Yes, ma'am. Hey, everybody. Brandon Harris here. I'm a dual director of sales for Sonesta Hotels down here in Silicon Valley in the South Bay area. So corporate man, also an author. Just do everything I can to use my gifts to make room for me so I can scatter seeds wherever I go. So that's pretty much it for me. Appreciate you for having me.
Thank you. And it's an honor to have all you guys here. The reason why I wanted to have this conversation, I feel like Black men do not have enough safe spaces to communicate their side of you, their perspective when it comes to life. I think it's very important that we have healthy spaces for our brothers as well. A lot of Black women, we have everything. We have each other, kitchens, we have beauty shops, salons, everywhere you go. But where do Black men have to talk? So I open up this platform to our brothers from various industries so we can have some real conversation and give them a space to have a voice to speak. So with that being said, I do want to kick off some conversation. One of the things I want to talk about here, navigating beyond the stereotype. We see so many stereotypes on social media and then through movies and music. So anyone can grab this. What do you feel like Black men should do? First of all, what do you feel like is the stereotype? And then two, how should Black men be able to combat that? And anyone can take that question.
I'll start first. At an early age, like right out of college, I was very conscious of how my presence defined people who may have never, been in contact with a Black man before. When I first started my career, I worked at an agency and I was the only Black male. And for me, I was very conscious at an early age of how I show up here will be some people's first experience with a Black man. So how am I carrying myself? How am I showing up? Because their impressions of another Black man may come from how I show up and what they learned from me. And so just for me, is in every room that I go into, I'm just myself, but I also do things in excellence. I show up in excellence. I treat people with respect. And a lot of these things are core values for me, but I'm very conscious of the weight that I carry when it comes to representing Black men in any room that I walk into, right? And so for me, that's how I do it. Like I make sure that when I show up, I'm showing up as me. I'm showing up 100%, but I'm also very conscious of the impact that I leave when I leave a room, right? And for me, that's some of the things that I do.
I really like that. That's a really good point. Does anyone else want to jump into that?
Absolutely, Camille. I want to give a different side to that because as I've gotten older, I've learned how to bring all of me into the room instead of leaving the parts out that I felt were undesirable. I felt that were uncomfortable for other people. I am learning now to bring all of me into the room and let the people adjust simply because I am simply who I am. Like Brandon said, generally, when I come into a room, people say, well, you have such a presence. But the thing about that presence is that took work. As a child, I used to walk with my head held down, and my mother used to pop me in the back of the head and say, hold your head up. And so I had to teach myself how to show up into the room and keep my eyes, look people in the eye when I speak to them. So it's been a process, and society doesn't necessarily help because we are learning that there are two sides to the coin. There are some people that want you to bring all of you into the room and show up as a man. And there's some people that say, well, okay, well, that's too much machismo for the room. So it's like you have to find that good, healthy balance, I think.
Really, really good. Michael, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. Had a similar experience as Derek had. I worked for a company, Ingles Supermarkets, which is a small regional grocery chain, and I was the only Black manager that was there. So I knew that I wasn't just representing me. I was representing all Black men that were trying to be managers with Ingalls, which was extremely difficult to do back in the early 2000s. In the metro areas, they have a lot of Black managers. But if you go into areas where Ingalls stores are very profitable, you only see white managers. So I agree with Derek, just, showing up with excellence. It is hard because sometimes you go in and you almost can't make a mistake because it'll be used against you. So I agree with Derek on that.
That's really good. Thank you for sharing that. I think one of the things I think Recondius brought out was the point how a lot of times with brothers, there's a presence. And Antwan and I've had this conversation before when it talks about how Black men present themselves is taken as aggressive when that's not the case. So Antwan, can you kind of unpack that point for us a little bit more? We had that conversation on a previous episode of the Speaker Podcast, talking about how when Black men present themselves and show up, but it's perceived as aggressive.
Yes, we have had that conversation. And I think that it's always important just to kind of ground this conversation. I think that it's important to even think historically what Black men have encountered and what society has put upon us in this country. I think you can't have this conversation without talking about things like slavery and what we endured during slavery and how those themes were then passed on not that many generations ago. So when you think about that, you think about the fact that when we show up in society, there's certain societal norms that are put upon us that we've had no input in. We didn't choose them. We didn't say this is how we should act. Somebody put these norms upon us, and these norms were not put in place by other Black men. So I think that that's a constant dichotomy that we're having to encounter, where we have this expectation of what we're supposed to be like. And some of that can be informed by the Black church. Some of that can be informed by our Black mothers and some of the Black females around us. And then some of it can just be informed by society in general, where we can't feel, we can't have emotions, we can't show weakness. But who defines weakness? It's oftentimes not us. So I think that it's important that you have things that are socially constructed, but then you have an individually applied perspective. And I'm going to always introduce my individually applied perspective when I walk into a room. And similar to what I think two other people have said, I've become less apologetic when I come into the room. I don't feel like I have to come into a room and feel like I'm representing the entire Black male race, because that's impossible to do. We all have different experiences. I'm going to carry myself well, but I'm going to be unapologetic about how I present myself. And if the people in the room are offended by that, I'm not going to apologize for that.
That's really good. So with that being said, I want to bounce off Brandon, touching on something Antwan said. So how do you, being in corporate America, how do you navigate beyond the stereotype, Brandon?
Yeah, great question. So as she said, I do work in the corporate world as a dual director of sales for a hotel company. The first thing I have to address is, and it's probably going to be coming from a different perspective, is in the Black community, I'm not actually Black, I'm white. Like as one of my poems I wrote, look at me, tell me what you see. Even my own brothers called me a half-breed. Like around them, I'm not even Black enough to be Black. But then in the white corporate America, I'm not white enough to be white. So I find myself, as he said, this duality or this dichotomy to where it's a really finding out I have to decide who I'm going to be. Like one of the things I've always struggled with is how do I do my hair? Like I have a natural widow's peak. So do I get the fresh line up and then I have this little hair right here growing down? And so then I have to go to the other side because I am also white, that I have to speak with, my white counterparts and ask them, how do I carry myself if I was white? And it's a constant blending and merging these things together. So I recognize that I am viewed in corporate America as a Black male, but the struggle that I have to also fight that's not really giving me the grounded support that I would hope to have is that I'm not Black enough to be Black in my own family. So I have found myself deciding for myself what I'm going to be. And if I am opening up the doors for those that will come after me, can I allow them, as they just said, to be unapologetic by the way that I carry myself? Can I give them the confidence that even though I had to formulate who I am, that's a struggle that we all go through, is just from a different perspective. So it's been a fight. It has been a battle. But I think that because of the battle, my sword is getting more sharp and I'm able to better carry myself day in and day out with confidence. So, yeah.
Wow, that's deep. And I think that's something that is not discussed too, as far as biracial, multiracial individuals that complex, whether, you know, not Black enough, not white enough, and how do you just define your own person? So that's definitely another conversation I do want to open up and bring you back for, because I believe that's very important too. Dr. Woodsen, what do you feel about what we're talking about as far as navigating beyond the stereotype?
Well, so my work, a lot of it is in education. And so I see the impact that society has on our young people starting in elementary school and moving through. And so I know that a lot of what is deemed characteristic of Black males is ingrained in them in middle school. Just like Brandon, you know, I had similar issues. I came from a prominent Black family, so I went to some of the best schools. It wasn't until high school that I even went to a predominantly Black school. And when I got there, I had to battle that, why you talk white, why do you act white? I did not have a point of reference for what they deemed appropriate. It wasn't until I went to Morehouse for undergrad that I even saw Black males beyond my family that were really successful. So growing up in Detroit, that's not what we saw. And so I think that, you know, some of what has been deemed characteristic or stereotypical has nothing to do with us. Like those traits and characteristics are really put on us by other people. And so when I started working at the college level, my biggest challenge was that we would have to spend the first 2 years unindoctrinating our Black males to the fact they could be successful. And so I think that we really need to consider even the damage that our own culture has on our Black males. You know, I was told, well, you're in Detroit, you'll either end up in jail or dead before you're 21. And so the whole time I was growing up, that was what was in my head, not let's be successful, not let's start our own company, not let's be a vice president of a college. So I think that even in our own culture, we need to have some real discussions about how we are impacting our young males, even at that middle school, in that like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 range.
That's really good. I think there's so many things here that we're going to unpack tonight. First of all, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. And I appreciate your transparency and your honesty during this conversation. For those, if you're just tuning in, please like, share, and comment. Let someone know we're here. We're having a roundtable discussion with Black men that are the next generation of leaders, creators, and innovators in the industry. We're discussing topics that are impacting our culture and our community. So please drop a heart comment in the comments below. Share this. Let someone know that we're here and we're having this discussion. With that being said, gentlemen, what is one thing you wish that people knew about Black men in terms of what you need emotionally?
I'll take that one if possible.
Okay, go ahead.
I would say validation is often missed with Black men. I feel as if, kind of based on the conversation that we just had prior to that, it's almost like a thing within our community that if you validate a Black man, I'm not talking about a kid, because, you know, we do that with kids, but as you begin to mature, you'll find that a lot of that validation starts to just kind of dwindle away, and you're not told as much that you're handsome. You're not told as much that you're loved. The hugs stop after you are, after a certain age. The affection stops. The validation, son, I'm proud of you. All of that kind of stuff. Nephew, I'm really proud of you. And what you start to find in the Black community with our men is that we say things with negative undertone. Oh, you think you somebody now? Oh, you think you all that now? Oh, you got a little job. You thinking, and so it's always this twisted compliment that is often has a subliminal message underneath it that you feel and you sense. And it's almost like a thing where you don't even want to succeed too bad or too much, because you never want to be separated from the tribe. Even if that tribe is toxic, even if that tribe is not giving you what you need emotionally, you still want to stick around. So sometimes as Black men, we minimize our efforts to be great because we don't want to be too great. If we're too great, now we'll get separated from the herd, because at the end of the day, we all got to remember that we are tribal beings. So we thrive in tribes. And if you know anything about the psychology of that, is that we do anything to fit in. We do anything not to get separated from the herd, because in herd we find safety, even if the damage that we endure most of the time comes from the herd. So I would say what Black men often don't say they need is validation. To say, I see you, you're doing a good job, without there being a negative, condescending undertone to it. You're just doing a good job. Not you think you all that. No, you're doing a good job, son. Friend, you're doing an amazing job. Friend, I'm proud of you. Friend, you make me smile. I'll say that.
That's really, really good. And the fact that you said that, I hope those listening take note of that. It's very important. And just me as a Black woman, I think Black men, from the time you step out of the door, there's a target on your back. You're driving down the street. It doesn't matter if you're driving a Benz, a Beamer, a Hummer. You're a Black man in a certain neighborhood. So immediately there's a target on your back. If you show up and present a certain way, you're being aggressive, and you're always conscious of all these things. So the fact that you're saying those things, Marc, I think is really, really, really important. And just thank you for sharing that. And just have you guys here, just even in this conversation, I think alone speaks volumes, because I think it's really important for men to know that. So the loved one and the people, those in their lives, can know these are the things they need to hear. And this is a space where people can learn, take note, and then correct and redirect. Because when you know better, you do what? You do better. So we're going on to the next conversation. I'm going to say a phrase, and I want someone to unpack that for me. I'm going to say physical man, psychological boy.
Okay. So this is going to marry to what Marc said about validation. You're a physical man, but you're a psychological boy because you were never validated as a child, or your validation came few and far between. And so when you grow up and you're a physical man and you're literally waiting for someone to acknowledge the little boy, or to at least acknowledge that you have now transitioned into a man, that child or that little person is still waiting. So you're not aware of it until it literally becomes a thing. And so literally when you are thinking physical man, psychological boy, that child still has to be validated. You as a man, I as a man have had to go back and tell little me, hey, you're good. Nobody's coming to save you. Dry your eyes, lift up your head, put your shoulders back, and let's do this. And that's still a constant thing. And whether we want to acknowledge it or not, that literally is one of the things that is a shackle around a man's ankles, because that man seeks validation from wherever he can get it from, whether it be a spouse, whether it be a woman, whether it be a man, whether they are literally looking for someone to acknowledge that broken space that was never acknowledged as a child.
Thank you. JaiTee,
Can I?
what are you
Oh,
on
I'm
that?
sorry.
JaiTee?
I'm sorry. I heard Brandon getting ready to say something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What are your thoughts on that?
For me?
Yes.
Okay. I agree with what he just said. And I do say when those moments come, I'm always the one to say, what's the root? Where did it come from? Who started that? Was this during your childhood? If it was, okay, where? Because one of the things that I saw on TV was a conversation that was happening, and it stuck with me. They were sharing about, I think the guy was training other counselors, psychiatrists, on how to have conversation with the individual that is needing that help. And the guy was asking him, did your father start it? Did your father do that? Great. And what happened was, what came after that question, it became a cadence that sounded like his father. So the guy was like, stop. He was like, do you hear what you just asked him? You have to be careful not to jump back into that rhythm of what he is trying to get removed out, or not removed, but healed in his mind. You can't trigger those patterns. So I think it's something for us to, when we're seeing, or we're in that moment where we see a physical man but a psychological boy, where did it start? Who are the connectors? What are the triggers? And let's try not to trigger that. Let's try to do the opposite, because I think when people start experiencing the other side that they never thought they could get, that's when hope is then built. that, okay, I can change. Okay, I can be better. I can, grow up. I can put away childish things and become a full, what we call man. So that's my take on it. Just being able to know where it started, where did it come from, and learn from that moment on how we can be the total opposite and provide support in that situation.
I love that. Brandon, I think you were going to hop in and say something.
Yeah, I do. I definitely agree that validation plays a pivotal role. But also when I view it from this standpoint, when it says in the Bible, when he did something, there was nobody else around there to congratulate him. It says that he did something and then he told himself and it was good. Sometimes we have to have the ability to validate ourselves in the absence of other people, because if not, I fear we may run the risk of becoming slaves to their validation, that we then become actors in search of getting the applaud from people. We start doing things not because it's who we are, but because we're trying to be applauded by other people. I'm reminded of David that says he had to be anointed 2 or 3 times to make him believe that he was actually going to be the king. Like he was anointed the one time. You would think that's all that it would take. But it took him being anointed again and then again, because sometimes it takes somebody to be able to call the king out of the boy. So I do agree with that we do need somebody that's able to do that. And then at some point in time, it should be that we can give it to ourselves, that we have put that away. Because as he made the point, JT, when I became a man, I put away childish things. They're still there. It's still there. It's an active choice to put those things away. And I think that at some point in time, I hope that we transcend into that point as becoming men, that I no longer require the validation of others, that I can tell myself and it was good. And
I want to say with what he just stated, and in connection to what you all were sharing with the last conversation and Mark bringing up validation, I think in the scheme of all of this, if we begin to create a culture to where we accept men for being who they are and accept their difference, they can do those moments where God stood back and saw what he made and said it was good. He didn't say, should that have been bluer? Should that have been right there? What about this? No, he stepped back and said it's good. And how many times do we create something and we step back and look at what we create and say it's good? Not because we seen the result, we seen the success, people told us, because I made it. I did it. I thought of it. I brought it to fruition. Here it is. It is good. I don't care what you say about me. I know it's good for me. It may not give the results that some may think, but I'm okay with that. And I think if we build that culture to where we are validating and accepting men for being different, for thinking their way, for saying, okay, instead of saying, I think I would have did it that way, saying, that's dope. I like that. That's a way I didn't think about. Let's try that. Let's do that. I think we'll begin to build a culture to where it's common to accept the difference. Because I think a lot of this is connected with us not owning our difference and being okay that I am different, that I am a different color. Yeah, I may have the same name, but I'm okay with that. And I may talk differently. I may look different. My hair may be better because I think I got the best hair on here. Right. So I'm not shaded with anybody, but in the scheme of all of it, I think with what we've been saying and with what Brandon just stated, just creating that culture to where I'm okay with you being different from me and I'm okay with you doing it, so that in the scheme of even now, while I'm doing work, one of the hardest things that I've been working on in 2021 is doing it when I get it first. Don't pick up the phone and call anybody. Don't research anything. Don't try to see if it's already been done. Baby, let me just do it because it came to me. Do I have enough energy in myself to trust the ideas that are coming to me, put it together, and then go research it? Why? Because I want to find out, is anyone doing it, or can I find confirmation instead of allowing myself to jump and find it and then minimize what I've done because that looks complete. So let me start doing that. So, yeah.
I just want to add one thing completely. When I hear that statement, I think about it differently. And I think about just mental health just in general. And the fact that when we are young, we are really taught that emotions are not healthy, that men don't show their emotions, that is not what men do. And so what we really do when our Black males become men, we've created like this pressure cooker where we don't, many of us know how to manage our emotions, how to express ourselves effectively. We are discouraged from ever seeing counselors. And so I think that some of what we see with this physically a man, mentally a boy, is an inability to just manage the realities of adulthood. I have a lot of young males I mentor across the country. And the first thing I have to get them to do is release some of these emotional issues and some of this baggage that many of them have carried with them most of their lives. So when I think about that, I just think about the fact that we really as a community need to do a better job of mental health work with our young males. So when they get there, we don't have this pressure cooker. And I'm speaking from experience because I was the same way. And until I started therapy in my late 20s, there was a lot of stuff that I could not manage. And my responses to adults in many cases were not effective or appropriate.
That's really, really good. I want to pivot just a little bit because this is something that's been on my mind. And I've asked someone this question before. As Black men, you guys go through so much. You have so many things that you deal with throughout your life, ups and downs. And when you're in a relationship with someone you love, someone you're dating, someone you care about, or even if you're married, how can you as a man navigate that space when you're going through it, but you don't make the person that you feel like they're walking on eggshells or that they're shut out or unsafe? And anyone can grab that question.
Can you repeat the question?
When you're in a relationship with someone and you're going through the ups and downs of life, how do you navigate what you're going through, but you don't make your partner feel emotionally unsafe?
So I think I didn't do it effectively at the front end, so I would just be honest and transparent and say that I was not effective at this at all. But I think the main issue is our ability to communicate. And not communicate what's going on in the situation, but communicate how we're feeling and why we're responding a certain way. I think that our partners, whoever they may be, would probably feel more safe if they had a point of reference. But when you just blow up on people or when you have these responses that the other person just thinks it's coming out of nowhere, in many cases, it's because as Black males, we are taught to internalize so much. And in general, we lash out at the people that we assume aren't going to go anywhere. I mean, that's just the reality. You know, we're young. The people we lash out at most are our parents and family because they kind of stuck there and they can't leave. And so I think that is important, our ability to really understand why we're feeling certain ways and why we're having these responses, because if we are not able to communicate effectively, we can't certainly solve that problem.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add to that. I think it comes down to the whole conversation around language, right? Because for me, you know, early on, it was frustrating because I didn't have the language or the words to describe how I was feeling. So the frustration of not being able to clearly communicate how I was feeling to a loved one or somebody about the situation, and then me trying to explain it, but them not getting it, just made the frustration a little bit more. And I think we see that a lot, not only present day as we continue to evolve as Black men, but then also in the younger generation, it's language. Even to go back to what Marc was saying, like, I can say, JT, yo, your hair looks fly now because I've done the work to get to the point where I can compliment another Black man and not make myself feel like, oh, shoot, like I need to add some extra jargon to that or like a little negative connotation so it doesn't seem like, you know what I'm saying, like I'm being, you know, whatever the conversation or whatever the word people want to use. Like I can give another brother a comment, yo, man, you look dope, you're handsome, man, and not feel a certain way because I've done the work. And I think if we can start to create the spaces where with our younger folks, which I didn't have this when I was younger, because I can count on one hand how many times I told my dad I loved him. Even to now, I say it more now as an adult, but as a kid, I never heard that from him. And so being able to create space and understand that now and being able to create a language around expressing your feelings in a way where it becomes normal that I can compliment another brother and it doesn't have to be anything but that. You know what I'm saying? So right. language, giving youth the words to be able to describe their emotions and how I feel. And that goes back to the mental health piece. And I think it all connects in every aspect that we're talking about today. Is if I don't have the language, then I'm going to communicate it in another way because I am frustrated because I cannot say what I feel and no one is getting it because I don't have the words. Right.
Yeah. Can I add something to that too, Camille?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So I completely agree with both statements about the language and just having to internalize a lot as a kid. And I know we've all heard this, you know, and I'll probably go on record saying our counterparts probably heard the same thing. Boys don't cry. I don't know at what point we transition from being babies to whatever age. I don't know the standard age, but you're told certain things like you just don't show emotions. You don't cry. You don't exhibit anything that you see a woman do. You shouldn't do that. So then when you start to feel these emotions, you really don't know what to do with it because there's no outlet that you've been given to share them. So that doesn't just stop in that moment. It actually starts to get worse as you become older and actually start experiencing different types of relationships. It surpasses just a relationship with friends and family. Now you're in relationships and romantic relationships, and now there's issues, right? And so when issues arise, most Black men probably just shut down. We just get quiet. And it's so uncomfortable for people because they don't know what's wrong. You can't communicate what's wrong. They ask you what's wrong because there's a clear change of energy, clear change of how you're showing up, but you don't even have the language like Brandon said. My man said, I'm sorry, you don't have the language to communicate how you feel, right? So it's just a weird space. And I think a lot of us just don't go to therapy and we don't go, to get counseling so that we can actually work through those emotions and communicate it. And even to the point I have to find myself like, when was the last time you cried? When was the last time just talking to myself, release emotions and let things go? Because all of that is a pressure cooker. Like we said earlier, it's a pressure cooker. So it's just sitting there boiling up because you don't know how to communicate. You don't know how to express love. You don't know how to say, I love you. You don't know how to say I'm hurt. You don't know how to say I'm scared. You don't know how to communicate any of that. So that's the issue I think a lot of us have.
That's powerful. And then as you were talking, Mark, something came to my mind as far as not having that space and something I think Wayne may have touched on. The shutting down. And I think too, a lot of men, particularly Black men, have experienced when they do find a space where they believe they are safe and feel safe and they open up and become vulnerable and they do it. And then later it's weaponized or used against them. And then it's like, well, see, that's why I don't talk to anybody. So can you guys kind of touch on that? Let's go to Michael to start that off about weaponization of conversation.
I think Antwan touched on it earlier. We're still dealing with the emotional trauma from slavery. Slavery was in, I think, 1619 in this country, and we're still dealing with the after effects today. If you think about what they called us, you were a boy, and that's what you were, a child. They wanted us to stay in that element of being a child so that you wouldn't pretty much connect with your tribe or, build up your community to where you could overthrow pretty much, your oppressor. I think if we as a community would realize that most of the stereotypes that we put on ourselves, I'm not sure who mentioned it earlier, but it didn't come from us. And we should stop using stereotypes on ourselves that are from other races that demonize us, that suppresses our feelings, because I do understand, like during that slavery period, no, you couldn't show any emotion that would have been used against you. Times are a little bit better. So it's okay to cry. It's okay to let your child know, hey, I love you. Telling someone that you love them is not a weakness. It's a strength. So I think if more of us realize that we're still dealing with the emotional trauma of slavery, I think we can start to address not all, but most of the issues, mental health issues that Black men have today.
That's really good. As he was talking, Antwan, I saw your face and you were just like, Well,
can I touch on that, Ms. Camille,
yes,
from
please,
Antwan?
please.
I mean, from Mr. Michael. Yes. So I do agree with both Antwan and Michael and the slavery aspect of things. My great grandmother raised my mom, and she's the daughter of somebody that just come from being slaves. I'm from Oklahoma. So when you think about the generations of this, I'm only 3 or 4 generations removed from somebody that has a direct relationship with slavery. But I'm reminded of somebody when I think about Martin Luther King and Moses, when I make the comparison of them, as Moses was freeing the slaves, it says that the slaves groaned against him and said, we were better off as slaves. This lets me know that there is a mindset out there that some people actually like where they are. And I can back it up with this scripture. When Jesus asked the man by the pool, will you be made whole? Now, I do understand that we are, in fact, dealing with some of those traumas and childhood issues. But the question I ask people is, when will we be made whole? Like, I agree. We need to have these conversations with people. And I think that we can have them, but we can have them amongst ourselves. Sometimes I'm learning that if somebody doesn't want to talk to you, it's fine. Let them be them. There's a scripture where it says, pick yourselves up and shake the dust off as a testimony to them. Some people don't want to hear what you're going through. They have no time for it. They're not trying to listen to anything you're talking about. So you're just going to make yourself mad. And I know that people get mad because if you remember the two, they were called the Barnacres brothers, the sons of thunder. Whenever somebody turned them down, they said, Jesus, you want us to cast down fire from heaven on them? Some of these dudes was about it, that if somebody didn't want to listen to what they went through, they said, can we cast down fire from heaven on them? You just don't want. What I'm learning in my life to recognize, this may not apply for everybody, is that at some point in our time, we have to acknowledge what it is. Yes, we were slaves, but there's some parts of that culture that we hold on to because we feel it's safer for us. It's best for us, as somebody else said earlier. So I asked then, when people say that I'm African-American, I don't care for the term at all because I don't feel African because I have no ties to my culture, my heritage, my name. I don't have any of that. And I don't feel American because I don't get a chance to fully enjoy the rights and liberties that this country claims to offer us. So it seems as we have to decide who we're going to be. We have to decide what our culture is going to be and start from here. As Joshua said, I don't give a damn what y'all do anymore. Me and my house going to serve the Lord. There has to come a point in time where we recognize where we come from, and then we have to trust God that He's going to get us through where we need to be. And we have to make a stand and say, I'm not going to go and conform to the comings and goings of the world. I'm going to be ye transformed by the renewing of my mind and decide who I'm going to be. I just wanted to make sure that I said that to the slavery piece.
I fully agree with what Brandon's saying. I think the challenge is we're not honest in our community. We shield a lot of stuff. We pretend like everything's okay. And I think that exactly some of what he's saying is critical. First of all, we were not slaves. We were enslaved kings and queens from another country. And that's a big distinction when you're trying to shift people's mindsets. Because we need to realize that, even what Brandon said, before that, we already had an identity. And somewhere in our culture, there's been this disconnect that our people just started in the 1600s. And that's completely inaccurate. My great-grand uncle Carl G. Woodsen said that we can't advance if we keep relying on the people who are enslaving us to do stuff for us. And that's a critical component. We're not going to be able to do this work effectively if we don't take some ownership of managing our own stuff. People have lots to say about Islamic people and Jewish people, but if you go in those communities, those grocery stores are owned by their people. The businesses are owned by their people. If there are needs, they build their own community centers. I will never forget when I was an undergrad, they had put this picture of Brandy up over by the Muslim supermarket. When we came back the next day, they had spray painted a whole veil on her and covered her face. Now, at the time, I was like, this is extra, but no. This is our community, and these are our standards. And if you're going to be in here doing stuff, then you're going to adhere to our standards. We are not going to conform to yours. And I think that's the challenge. And sometimes our leaders get in these leadership positions, and they forget where they came from. And they don't really focus on us anymore. They focus on whoever they think is going to do the most for them. And that's an ineffective way of moving forward. And we can't do the work Brandon's referencing if we don't have some honest conversations about the stuff that's going on.
That's really good.
Camille, I wanted to make a point really quick.
Okay.
Obviously I work in mental health, and I've seen a lot of Black men in mental health. And I think that one of the distinctions that I always like to make when I first start working with a Black male that, let's say, has presented to me is that mental health is an organic process. That means there's some kind of chemical imbalance. There's something going on that is causing functional and occupational distress. But absent of poverty, would this mental health still be in place? Absent of trauma, would this mental health still be in place? So I think that it's important. While there's definitely people that have just organic mental health issues, and there's a whole genetic component to it and a whole biological component to it, I think that it's also important to acknowledge that there are certain systems that are put in place that cause mental health to be a higher propensity.
How do you feel safe? What do you feel like you need as a Black man to feel safe?
Well, Camille, I'm going to start off with that one because I want to finish a thought from that last conversation. We have to unlearn some of this behavior, and that's really the truth. Actually, Brandon said it best. And I may get nailed to the cross for this, but I wasn't born a slave. Yes, I know about the slave history. I don't even watch slave movies because I don't want that. I don't want that imagery in my mind, simply because I understand the trauma that it has caused, not just on, our people, but I'm looking at the results of unprocessed trauma. I'm looking at the results of, not being able to deal with stuff or suppressing emotion, not being able to express yourself clearly. It is a daily work to unlearn the behavior and to relearn. Even if we can look at ministry, we can look at workplace, we can look at so many societal norms now that have even social media that have literally ingrained in us that there's another way that's better than yours. And so we have to really unlearn some of that behavior and relearn how to show up in not just the marketplace, but even in our home and our relationships in an effort to feel safe. The safety is not just it's in finding the right person to hear you. It's in feeling safe within yourself that, okay, I am not well, or I don't feel good enough. I'm not showing up as myself. How do I change that narrative? How do I fix that? And the thing about that is once you feel safe enough to own the fact that there's something is different or something is off, then you can show up in other areas of your life fully and wholly and know that it literally, you're okay to not be okay.
That's really good. Can you say that one more time so people can really grab that statement you just said?
The whole statement?
No, it's about being okay with not being okay.
We have to really unlearn some of the bad behavior, the things that have become societal norms, to know that in order for us to fully show up, that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to own the fact that, today I don't feel authentically like myself. Today I don't feel like, that I have the capacity to be able to deal with a lot of that. And that's really the root of it. As someone said earlier, to get to the root of a thing, we have to own the fact that, sometimes you don't have the capacity. Sometimes life in and of itself has happened and you're steadily pushing through. We're taught that we have to keep trudging through. And sometimes it's just safe to go to a corner and stand still and be still and figure out what it is that's missing. What do I need? And then you can actually communicate. I have learned something that is a powerful tool for me. You can ask me a question. I'm going to pause before I answer you. Because if I answer off the top of my head, I may give you an answer that's abrasive or not necessarily rehearsed, but I didn't think through it. So what I do is once I hear the question, I think about where my answer is going to land. And I learned that, healing from abuse, because, I had to learn how to not respond in a defensive manner. So what I do, I listen and I hear where the question is coming from. And then I decide, how do you answer the question effectively so that you're heard effectively?
That's good.
Go ahead, B.
I was just going to say, for me, safety is an emotional word for me. So in general, I don't fear my physical safety as much as I do my emotional safety. So when I go into a space, I have to feel safe, and I have to feel safe to be exactly who I am and to not feel like I have to apologize, or I think that Marc mentioned it, that I don't have to dim down who I am. That's the biggest thing for me. So I think that when spaces really want to go out of their way to make spaces comfortable for Black men, accept us for who we are. Don't categorize us into these large categories because we're all different. Just like everybody on this panel has had a very different experience. I think that those different experiences need to be cherished and they need to be celebrated more. I think that too often that we're marginalized and we're kind of put into a box that if you're a Black male, you do X, Y, and Z. And if I don't fit into that mold, then I don't feel like I have a place. And I feel like when I go into spaces, I'm having to define who I am. Just let me be who I am. I will tell you exactly what I need. I don't need for you to define that for me.
Would someone want to say something? I think someone was trying to get a point.
Yeah, I didn't know. I wanted him to be able to go as well. So, okay. So I wrote some notes and I forgot them. So I got to read this back because I really wanted to pay attention to what they were saying. I paid attention to a theme. It seems like what I'm getting from this is that when we become strong as Black men, the world becomes victims. Let me explain. That's the thought that came to my mind, is that when you think about our history, just from the standpoint of the last 60 years, we once were victims. And if you fast forward that, we became volunteers. And I say this because 50s and 60s, they were marching, getting beat up and shot to get the right to vote. And people now have this right to say, oh, I don't care to vote because I don't have to do that. It doesn't work anyway. But somebody at one point actually believed in what they fought for. And then somebody got it and didn't take advantage of that thing. And the reason I bring this up is because the second part is now as Black men start to become strong and find their sense of who they are, it seems like the rest of the world is now changing their identity because it's become a hustle to be a victim. It's like now people are saying, well, you could tell somebody the trauma you went through, and then they'll compete with you to figure out who went through the most trauma. So then you can't even talk about getting better because misery loves company. And that's the thought that came to my mind. And I think it's because when he just said we were marginalized, I think it's because we don't own anything. So my last thing I was going to say is we have to start taking control of what we make. There was a report that says we African-Americans have about $3.2 trillion that we come to, but we're consumers. We don't own grocery stores. We don't own farms. We don't own any of that stuff. So, of course, they're going to marginalize us because we don't come to the table as partners. We come to it as somebody looking to get something. I think when we change that, our perspective of who we are, that we can produce a thing and not just consume a thing, we don't have to tell people to let us be who we are. We can just be who we are because we then don't need them to allow us to do anything. That's it.
No, that's a really good point. And that's one thing I do like. I'm a member, and some of us here too, I'm a part of the Marc Coley Business Academy, and that's one of the messages that we discuss every day as far as ownership, circulating the Black dollar and supporting Black businesses. I think it's important. I've always, in the back of my mind, I wanted to, but now being in this community, it's made it a part of my lifestyle. Like I consciously make an effort to make sure that when all possible, that I spend my money within my community first for certain resources. So Brandon, that is a really good point. Did someone else want to hop in on that topic or that point of discussion?
I just want to really touch on something Brandon said and then answer about safety. But I think one of the issues is that we don't give our own businesses the same grace that we give other businesses. So if we have a bad experience at a Black business, we will dog them out. We'll never go back. Sometimes never have a conversation with them about what was the challenge or what was the issue. But we don't do that same thing for these other businesses. You can have a bad experience at Bloomingdale's, the Gap, any of those stores, and you are not going to stop going. Even when we do this cancel culture thing, as a community, we don't do it because we still individually support these businesses. So I think that Brandon's bringing up some very valid points that we need our own stuff. And then, which is probably not the prevailing belief, but in terms of safety, I think the reality is the moment I tend to become safe, then something crazy happens generally in this country. So I was feeling kind of safe early part of this century, and now we're just getting gunned down in the streets, and then people are just like, it is what it is. And we are becoming desensitized to our own need for safety. So now it's just like the status quo. I have heard young males in their 20s and 30s say that they don't expect to come home when they leave the house. That concerns me because that is just saying that across the board, there is an issue with our physical safety. And it goes back to what I said earlier. We did have some very serious conversations about how we're going to solve our own problems. And that's something Brandon's addressing too. We need to solve our own problems and stop looking to other people to do it for us.
That's really, really good. JaiTee, Michael, did you want to hop on that?
Just a different perspective. When growing up as a kid, I didn't have a father that was there, but my mom was there. So I heard, you're handsome, you're smart, you can do it. I got that encouragement on a daily basis. So as far as being safe, when I look to build new relationships, whether that's friendships or a partnership, it's, do I have that emotional connection to you? So for me, it's that emotional connection of whether or not I feel safe sharing stuff with you, sharing stuff that I wouldn't, put out in public. So that's what I would add to that, different perspective on that.
That's really good. I think that kind of ties back into the point I made before the break regarding the weaponization when men, particularly Black men, when you guys do open up and then it's weaponized against you. And then there are situations whether it's a friend, partner, wife, husband, whomever may ask, well, why aren't you talking to me? What's going on? And it's all tied into not feeling safe, not feeling trusted. So I think it's very important, that we talk here openly so people can kind of hear. And sometimes people don't see themselves. So one of the reasons why I wanted to have this platform for all of us as a community to see that despite what society says about Black men, you guys are very smart, very intelligent. You have feelings, you have thoughts. But about all and anything else, you're human, period. And I think because we see these stereotypes, a lot of times within our community, people forget the humanity when you're looking at a Black man. And it makes me angry and it irritates me when Black men are demonized, viewed as monsters, predators, viewed as aggressive. It really burns me up because I know that's not the case. So thank you guys just for opening up and sharing your thoughts with me on that tonight. Did anybody have any final thoughts before we move on?
I just wanted to add a little something just about the conversation around trust when it comes to safety, at least for me.
Okay.
When I feel safe when I can trust you, when I can trust that what I share with you is something that you will hold dear, right? One, but then also that your actions also reflect what you say. And so I'm a watcher. And so when someone says, oh, you can trust me, or that, hey, I have your back about this, I'm going to watch to see how your actions also support your words. And so as I have kind of grown and gotten older, and I look at trust when it comes first to my own circles, and that's how it helps me to build that foundation of safety and how I start to move outside of my circles and trust in other people, because I've built the foundation internally, and I recognize the signs, and I've learned the lessons from when people that I thought I could trust, let me down, and that distrust was there, or whatever the case may be. But then I also, took a step back to say, okay, well, what about this situation can I take and learn from, and then apply this into the next situation, so I don't become jaded by people that mishandle my just handle my I guess my story or anything that I share in confidence. I have to learn not to be jaded, which is hard, because it's a lesson in that. And so for me, when I think about safety, I think about trust. I think about who I can trust, around myself, and then also, my story or my journey or whatever the case may be. And then, and for me, that's where I really focus in on safety.
I love it. I love it. I love it. As we begin to wrap up, I'm going to go to each of the panelists, and I want you guys to each give us like a nugget or jewel or a takeaway for the listeners and the viewers here that they can kind of, have something to think about. I don't want this to be like a one and done. I want this to continue to have offline conversations. And as you guys know, y'all know I'm going to be reaching out, hey, I need you to come on the podcast. So y'all already know what's up. So with that being said, I'm going to start with Dr. Woodsen. What is the takeaway that you want someone that may catch this later, even right now, to get from this conversation that we had tonight?
I think the main thing, and what I keep hearing the whole time we talk, Black men need a little grace to do the work. Mm-hmm. I think that would be the main takeaway, because we are unpackaging and processing a lot. And it would help with trust. It would help with so many things. Even our partners, if you just gave us a little grace to try to figure this thing out, because sometimes reality is we don't have the answers and we really don't know. And I think that is hard for people to understand. So that would probably be my takeaway.
Awesome. Marc?
I wanted to share this early as I heard everyone speaking, something that happened today, and it's just kind of, I guess, talks about the situation. So I guess I can leave it as a nugget. But I went to grab food today, and while I was in line, there were two other Black gentlemen in front of me. They got out of I believe it was like a coupe Mercedes-Benz. So when I got inside of the restaurant and they were in front of me, I noticed that they had a lot of tattoos on them. You know, some on their faces, different things. You know, all of the things that we see on the news. Now, mind you, I have on my wave cap, I have on my Nike slides and my socks, so we both give the look of thug and hood, but internally, I looked at them a different way. I looked at them as thugs, real thugs, and they could have been the smartest gentlemen's like that I've ever ran across. Could be guys that read books, guys that do mentoring, but because of the propaganda that we've been fed through social media, through news outlets, just over a period of time, that they've literally put us against each other. And now we literally look at each other as enemies, not as brothers, not as siblings, not as people of the same culture. And so I just thought about my mindset based on this conversation that we're having tonight. They got out of a Mercedes. Why did I think that was stolen? Who told me that was stolen? Who told me that a Black man can't be successful? Who told me that there was a standard of how success is supposed to look? So until we start to, as the running theme is tonight, unlearn certain things, even within our community, we'll always be put against each other, right? Because a white person could have came in there and looked at both of us and considered us thugs, not knowing that I'm putting on my wave cap so that when I get on Heart and Soul, my hair is laid down and I'm ready to go. But because of propaganda, we've been taught a certain thing. And I think that is also what we utilize against each other. So I'll leave with that thought.
Man, that's powerful. That is so deep. Marc, I really like that. That's very profound. Thank you. Recondius?
Wow. So first, guys, you guys are incredible. Like, I literally am honored to be a part of the panel. But what I would like for each person that has watched, each person that's listening, for you to create a space for the men and the little boys in your life to feel safe, create that safety beginning now. If you haven't, or if you didn't know how, ask, how can I support you? Create a space for the men in your life, the little boys in your life, to be vulnerable. I'm raising my nephews and I tell them I love them every day. One of the things that I love about them is that they come and they love me unconditionally. And when they put their arms around me, I don't make them feel ashamed that they are expressing their love. You have to create a space for a man to be vulnerable in order for him to be vulnerable. And so if we can begin to create those spaces where loving someone, expressing your love and expressing your concern becomes the norm, then it doesn't feel foreign to you. It doesn't seem like it's out of reach. I taught my parents how to say I love you. Learn how to say I love you, and show men and boys that it's okay to be safe and be vulnerable with you.
I love that. That's really good. Derek? We can't hear you, Derek. You're on mute.
I would say practice makes perfect, right? What I've learned is the more I share, the more I communicate when I feel uncomfortable, the more I, even when I don't have the words, I try to express and open up, the easier it gets. But it takes time. And so even in my relationships, even in my family or close friends, I do what my therapist told me was say it and let it be. And so that's like a mantra that I say it and let it be. So if whatever's going to come out of it is going to come out of it. And I can't worry about how they receive it if it's my truth. And so I have to first honor myself. And so I just want to share that with other brothers. Just honor yourself first. Share your truth. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't downplay it like it's not important, because what you have to say, how you feel, is important. And so that's what I would leave.
Thank you. I love that. Michael?
I would just leave, stop asking for a seat at the table. I think that's where a lot of our issues come from. If we start building our own table for our own people, that would help. Arwayne touched on it extremely well, that a lot of our problems and a lot of our mental health issues would come from us building our own, because a lot of us do pretend to be people that we're not when we're in certain environments. And when you suppress yourself long enough, that causes problems mentally. So I think if we would stop asking for a seat at the table and start building our own, we could achieve a lot of these problems.
Wow, I like that. That's really deep and profound as well. JaiTee.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Seeing my face pop up, it scared me a little bit, but we're good. We're good.
It's beautiful.
So what I would leave is, it's a saying that I've been saying for a couple of years, is don't allow your past experiences to hinder your future expectation. And I say that because I now live every day expecting something to happen, expecting the goodness, expecting great things, expecting connection, expecting open opportunities. And when things don't go that way, or something unexpected happens that is not the best thing that I need for my life, because I'm expecting something better, I'm able to find another avenue even when something unexpected happens. So I know what people may have said about certain individuals. I know what people may have brought to the table. I know what people may have done, situations, but I don't allow that to hinder what I'm expecting for my life every single day. So I go out having that. So that's what I encourage everyone to do, is to expect greatness every day. And when it goes left, you can now find another avenue that you probably didn't see, because, we have an expectation of what we're looking for. But I think that's a way to be able to keep going even when speed bumps and walls try to block you.
I love it. Antwan, your turn.
So first, Camille, I want to thank you for creating this space, because this type of space is not common. This is not something that happens a lot. And that leads me to what my point would be: responsibility. I think that we all have all of the things that everybody talked about tonight. I think we all own an individual responsibility to make those things happen. We all have a responsibility to create spaces like this where we flesh out these issues. I think a lot of the dialogue tonight talked about responsibility, in the sense that we can't depend. Society has already made their decision. So we can't depend on that. And other groups have already made their decision. So it's up to us to create the spaces that we need to be in so that we can flesh out these issues. We have social responsibility to each other. We have economic responsibility to each other. We have all of these responsibilities to each other, and we are much better off collaboratively than we are individually. And that's something that we talk about a lot, but that's not something that we practice. And that's something that I want to see more of. That's something that I'm going to individually challenge myself to do. And I would encourage everybody watching to do the same.
I love that. Hashtag responsibility. Everybody drop that in the comments below. Hashtag responsibility. Please do that. And last but not least, my brother, Brandon.
Hey, for me, it seems that the culmination of all these thoughts, it seems that we wanted that safe space. And I believe that's what the soil is. Just to take you to the parable of Jesus, when he talks about there was this farmer that scattered good seed. I want you to recognize the seed as us as men. We're good seed is what he said. But that seed fell amongst different types of soil. And if you understand, the different types of soil produce a different type of growth from the seed. That's how much a great place of safety matters to men. That I guarantee you this, women, if you're listening to this right now and you're tuned in, I guarantee you, if you provide good soil for that man, those roots will run deep and it will produce the fruit that you hope to enjoy life and experience from. So if you provide that soil, I guarantee you'll get a return 30, 60, 100-fold. And that's it for me.
I love it. First of all, I want to say I was so nervous, but guys, you guys knocked it out of the park. I could not do this without you. I'm humbled and honored. I want to continue to create spaces for men like you to come and talk and speak and be able to do so safely and in a healthy space. I love the fact that you all were very articulate, very responsible, very respectful, which you all are naturally. And that's why I reached out to you guys, because I knew each and every one of you had something that needed to be heard in this world, and to be able to have a space for you guys to say that. So thank you so much. Everyone here that's been rocking with me, first of all, shout out to DJ Spade. Thank you so much. He killed it. He knocked it out of the park. Thank you, DJ Spade. We went to college together. He represented Middle Tennessee State University very well. Another phenomenal husband and father. Thank you, DJ Spade. He'll be back tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. I want to say thank you again to Dr. Arwin Woodsen, Marc Coley, Recondius Lynch, Derek D. Ross, Michael Wiley, Brandon Harris, Dr. Antwan, future Dr. Antwan Aiken, and JaiTee. So y'all drop some hearts, some flames, some spades. Y'all show these Black men some love out here. Go out there, follow them on social media. I'm your girl, your host, your sister, your friend, Camille Essick. This is the Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and creators connect. Tomorrow is Ladies Night. The ladies will be here. If you want to know who it is, who's coming on, you know what? You need to follow me. You need to hit that notification button, and you need to make it do what it do. Registration is still available, and it is free. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Y'all be blessed. And thank you to my sponsor. Shout out again to Michael Wiley Photography, the Marc Coley Business Academy, Dream Door Nation, Gracie Ray Beauty, the Recondius Experience, Candies, Cocoa Bombs, and Chemistry Room Fragrances. With that being said, y'all, be blessed. Peace out. Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Speaker Podcast. Be sure to follow Camille on Instagram at camille.essick, Facebook at the Speaker Podcast, or www.camilleessick.com.